Yes, hold on, everybody, please. We're trying to get Roxy Lopez back.
I'm here.
Oh, hello.
Hello again.
Hello.
Well, that was very nice and kind of Appalachian Power to decide to do a brownout right before we started the show. I'm trying to get my computer back together, so just give me a second here. The computer, when it restarted, decided that it had to run a full security scan, and I had no control over it, so we had to wait 10 minutes for this.
My PC used to do that all the time as well.
Me and Roxy have this lovely technical issues whenever we go live.
Interference.
I'm telling you. Okay, I just want to make sure we're supposed to be. A couple more clicks. Our apologies to our listeners if we are even on the air right now. Yes, we are on the air. Okay, very good. Anyway, so that was a very interesting opening to the show. I'm sure the intro played and there was complete silence for 5 minutes. But anyway, so now everybody knows how my day is going. Let's bring Yvone Wykes on from across the pond. Hello, Yvone. How are you now that we are finally on the air?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. Much better than last week, thank you. How are you?
You sound good. You sound really good.
Good.
Back to her beautiful, lovely voice.
Aw. Well, I got my energy back. It really wiped me out, so I've just about got it back now, so that's good.
Good. You're all rested up. And now I think our assistant director in Winnipeg is under the weather this week.
I've passed it on.
Hi, Trev. How are you?
Hey, I'm not too bad.
Not too bad?
Yeah. Yeah, again. But, that's life.
Yeah, that's just par for the course, I guess. And you're getting snow up there now, aren't you?
Yes. Woke up this morning to snow.
Wow. Well, we had threats of it last week, but we didn't get any here, thank goodness. Anyway, so without further ado, we already heard her voice in the background. Let me tell you all a little bit about Roxy Lopez. I'm sure you already know. She's been a guest on our show many times. I consider her definitely the go-to gal when it comes to chemtrails. She is the owner of thetruthDenied.com and also is the host of our weekly radio show here on GIC Radio called Truth Denied with Roxy Lopez. And here to fill us in on what she's been doing these last several months, because I think it's been about 4 or 5 months since we've had her on the show, here is Roxy Lopez. Hello, Roxy.
Hello, good morning. What fun this is.
Yes, it's always fun with you, Rox, I'll tell you.
I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm in the dark over here. What's going on now? Are we even going to get to do a show? It just happens, and this is typical, and we all know how to deal with it, and hopefully our listeners hung in there. They usually do.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
We're good. We're all good, and we're ready to hear what you have been doing. And what I'd like to do, Roxy, if you could, is we have a lot of people are just now, because of Occupy, I'm noticing, and especially here for me and my local Occupy Roanoke, many people are just now awakening to the fact that chemtrails even exist. And I'm getting a lot of questions from my fellow occupiers. What is it? What's going on? So can you be so kind and go back into beginner mode for us a little bit, and maybe give your generic, for lack of a better term, description of what is a chemtrail and what are they seeing?
Very interesting that you mentioned that, by the way, because we also on Facebook, we have the group Chemtrails Kill, and we're also recruiting, if you will, a lot of new members who are just now realizing that these supposed contrails, and I will be more than happy to explain it, are really more than just a contrail or jet exhaust, if you will. And so I welcome anyone who's even at the very beginning of this discovery, because of the work that many of the camps have done. It's very easy for us to help those newcomers along. That's what our group does. It supports the newcomer. No question is a stupid question. The only stupid question is the one you don't ask.
Yeah.
So, the idea, I do look at a lot of other individuals' work, people that have worked on chemtrails a lot longer than I have, and I learn something new every day. And that is the interesting thing about chemtrails. Now, if you see in the sky, you might not see the plane itself, but you will notice, no matter where you are, really, these streaks. They're big white streaks. Now, what do these streaks do? Well, they linger. Sometimes they linger for the entire day. If you watch them, anybody who's new, you watch those streaks, they'll spread out, maybe even into some sort of cloud formation, or some milky type of blanketing of the skies. You'll see X's, you'll see many lines or grids going from north to south and east to west, like a tic-tac-toe board. Some people just see layers. I have footage of a day in Arizona where there were like roughly 30 streaks in a line, like a vertical line. Some people will see that, and then they spread out into separate, they kind of mold together into one big cloudy sky. So there are many, many different types of chemtrails, if you will, to notice. And if you're looking at the sky at the end of the day, sometimes all you noticed was a milky sky. But if you start at the beginning of the day or the beginning of that chemtrail spraying or geoengineering spraying or aerosol spraying, whatever you want to term it, you'll see those straight line streaks to begin with, and then you'll see them poof out. And then those who are new can study on that end to just watch a few days, and then they can sort of see how it goes. And there are many videos out there as well. We have quite a few on the Truth Denied's video archive and on the YouTube channel. So if someone wants to observe this. Now, there is a woman that was pulled into my attention named Sophia, and she has a brilliant background and way of explaining chemtrails to those who are new, and I even learned something from her. Now, new people will get, if they're out there talking about things and they're not in safe forums to have the discussions, they'll get what I call disinfoed. Immediately, you'll find somebody that will come into the picture and say, this is not a chemtrail, this is a contrail, this is jet contrail, this is caused by condensation, etc. And for the longest time, even we as researchers really, it kind of could confuse us in a way, I guess, because condensation would be an answer to a lingering contrail, with the exception. Condensation, which is in this case, what you're seeing is ice crystals because of the altitude, which is generally over roughly 33,000 feet. A plane spraying at about 33,000 feet. A jet contrail that has ice crystals is going to dissipate within moments.
Yeah.
That's the difference. It's just a scientific fact. Okay, and the way Sophia explained it, which really helped me, what we see in our skies is, by the way, she says the word contrail, the first part of that word con stands for condensation.
Yeah.
So in other words, contrail means condensation trail. And again, to reiterate, water evaporates. Those ice crystals evaporate very quickly. But what we see in our skies after several hours of chemtrail lingering and spreading out cannot be condensation, because condensation quickly evaporates, and these trails that we are seeing do not do any such thing.
Mm-hmm.
They grow thicker, they spread out across the skies, and they block sunlight. That's very, very important. And contrails form in high altitude. Now, here's the myth, and I'm going to tell you the myth is that these contrails that we are seeing lingering form in high altitudes with high humidity. That is a myth. Contrails form in high altitude and low humidity.
Oh, okay.
Right? And clouds that form in low altitude are in high humidity.
Mm.
The opposite that what the disinfo are telling us. So with that in mind, the rule of this is clouds and contrails need opposite effects in order to form. Period.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, what we are seeing is not a contrail. So let's just rule that out right now. So that's basically a easy way to explain what we're seeing in those skies. Now, what are they spraying? Well, that's a whole another ball game, because that's what people like Clifford Carnicom, Michael Murphy, and his biologists, and our camp of think tank of scientists. This is what we're all trying to formulate: is what exactly are they spraying? And of course, Mark McCandlish really helped me to understand that, the barium, aluminum, strontium components, okay? In other words, what we were testing, for instance, Michael Murphy's camp tested in Shasta, in the snowpacks and water up in Shasta, is, barium, strontium, and aluminum, and very high and unusual amounts of those. Now, interesting enough, what is barium, what is strontium and aluminum for the newcomer? Let me say this: it's not good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, flat out. Let's not be chemists here and discern barium, strontium, and aluminum. But what does it do to the human body? Those are toxic metals. All right, and when we ingest via our food and our water and our air contaminants, heavy metal, anybody knows that's going to build up in the liver. That's going to cause some side effects. That's going to cause sickness. That's going to cause even death.
Yeah.
So this is not good. And when we're looking at 68,000 parts per million, and the EPA only allows X amount, all right. Now let me take you. Let's backtrack a little bit right here. There was a CBS report out this year. Now, see, we're starting to see mainstream news reports. I was interviewed by CBS KPHO Arizona on the subject matter of chemtrails, and they basically debunked me. Even though I will say that the anchorman that came to interview me on camera for 2 hours, and I will say this publicly, I have no problem with it. When we talked in private after they filmed for 2 hours, he said that I was credible. He said that I said, what do you think after all the answers and all the conversation? He said, I think you're credible. And I said, really? And he said, yes. I think that you're very balanced and your information is very good.
Right.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
But then he turned around and did a 10-minute piece or 5-minute piece, whatever it was, that debunked me. Okay?
And that's what they do.
That's right. Which
Yeah.
made me realize that it wasn't in his hands.
Yeah.
And when we got a lot of people to write in the management at CBS KPHO, and even Steve Sussman, who's running for Congress out in Texas, opened a website called Free Thinkers and posted the entire timeline of the events that happened with I and CBS. We never did hear back from CBS, whether it be the anchorman, the guy that was behind the camera, or the management. Not a return email, not a return letter, not a return comment.
Really?
So what does that say to us? What does that say to us? We didn't aggravate them. We didn't, when we wrote our letters, we weren't trying to accuse them of anything. We just asked a couple of questions. We did not hear back from them. But that's all documented on my website, on Free Thinker's website, Steve Sussman. It's all documented. The whole timeline is there, names, dates, who sent the letters, etc. So it's there. It's out in the public. So, we get to cover our own media and tell the truth about what we experienced. And we also did an outtake. In other words, we, without their permission, when CBS arrived here, we had another camera on a tripod set up. and said, that we would air that or pieces of that. And what we did, you want to hear how the universe works. It's so incredible. They aired certain they edited and aired a certain piece on CBS, right? But they cut some things out. And so what we did is we took the whole 10-minute piece without the excerpts. We didn't take anything out and let it run, which that 10-minute piece answers those questions that they didn't run on CBS to just prove, like, look at this, they edited this out.
Right.
To make me look like an idiot or whatever. It doesn't matter. I don't take it personally. This isn't a personal thing. So we have that out on the YouTube channel as well. And we let them know that we were going to release parts of this, and all they asked was that we just not release it before they released their story. Again, where's the motive is so transparent.
Right.
So this is good, though. See, I look at this as good news, that this is good. They are trying, for anybody that's out there, really, the media and anybody else out there, that at NASA, NOAA, you name it, that they're trying to cover all this out. The military, they are trying to cover it up. Okay, now, with that in mind, if you're trying to cover something up, why? And if it's something that's good, like the EPA says, well, we are trying to clean the air of smog, so to speak. Well, if you're trying to do a good thing, and this is for a good thing, and these trails in the sky are eating up all the toxins in our skies, then why not expose that? Why not let us know that that's what you're doing with our tax dollars? Okay?
Exactly.
So with that in mind, just keep that in mind. I mean, I'm a fairly balanced individual. I'm open to the fact, and always have been, that perhaps they're trying to do something good. But then, when I do my research and the results of that research, heavy metal poisoning can't be good.
Yeah, there's no positive spin on that.
That's right. That's correct. So anyway, CBS did another report, and it started out with a man in Arkansas in the Southwest. He did some testing, rainwater, came out with 68.8 parts per million, 3 times the toxic level allowed by the EPA. So CBS went an extra step, and they went to the Department of Environmental Quality earlier this year, and they got some lab results. And the EPA's comment to the lab results, which were identical, this is a quote from the EPA in Arkansas. It said, yes, these are high and unusual levels of barium. But then they added the caveat, but proving the source of the barium toxicity is a whole nother matter.
Yeah.
So you see, they're always running. And by the way, what struck me about that report was, let's not forget what happened January, midnight 2011 in Arkansas. We had 5,000 birds crash to the ground.
Right.
And we had, in the Ozark, millions of fish died.
Yeah.
So, isn't it interesting that this man from Arkansas later in the year is testing the water, the rainwater.
Oh, and the water.
There's a connection, right? And then the question that most people have is the government testing secret biological chemicals on the public? That's the big question. Are they testing something, biological chemical, on the public? Now, to go back in history in the United States a little bit here, in 1977, Senate hearings confirmed that 239 populated areas had been contaminated from 1949 to 1969. That's a span of 20 years. That sounds like a test to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And then in 1994, the Rockefeller report, which is, by the way, where the U.S. admitted chemical weapon testing. The report concluded that hundreds of thousands of military personnel were subjected to secret biological experiments over the past 60 years.
Whoa.
Good God.
All right? So if anyone has a question, and I understand this, because when we ask that question, again, the very important question, is the government testing secret biological chemicals on the public? We've already proven that they have been. So what's new, people? I mean, what's so hard to wrap our minds around the present day? They've been doing it, and they're continuing to do it.
Yeah. All over the world.
Yeah, that was going to be my next comment, is that, you know, we say the government, but what government? Whose government? Because it's global, it seems.
Mm.
It is global, you know. And so in you know, and like I said, I just pulled out a couple of things that, you know, in our history in the United States. So, you know, it's like the 9/11. You know, when you ask somebody who doesn't believe that it was an inside job, the reason why someone wouldn't believe it is because they're in denial. They don't want to believe that our officials or our military would ever do such a heinous crime. That's all. It's hard to wrap your mind around, especially if you're older, you're a patriot, you know, you're patriotic to the United States of America, the red, white, and blue. That's hard to like comprehend on a bigger scale, because you don't want to believe that our government is doing any of this stuff. Well, people, we need to believe it, because this is, if you can turn that over in your mind and go to a place of acceptance, then you're going to start seeing differently. The world around you, you're going to start seeing the world around you differently. Once you get past that, because what denial does is it keeps you in a little box. And you're closed off to many, many, many truths around us. Now, with that in mind, is the government testing secret biological chemicals on the public? Well, Jesse Ventura did a whole show on Plum Island out there in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And he encountered, you know, what is Plum Island? It's one biological chemical plant. And then he found out that there were 1,100 of these biochemical research facilities in the United States alone. Well, what are they testing? Seriously. And I'm going to bring into something as well. You know, I was blown away by the movie Contagion. Because I have a background in this research, the movie Contagion, to those who don't know about Morgellons disease or chemtrails and this and that, would look like just, you know, a sci-fi movie type thing, you know, end of the world scenario, and people get a virus and everybody dies. But because I do know these terminologies and upper echelons of the government who create viruses in labs and let them out loose, you know, into the public just to see how quickly that virus grows, mutates, what have you. That's what the whole movie was about.
Wow.
And the upper echelons when it gets out of hand, because in this particular scenario in Contagion, the movie Contagion, you know, it spread through, you know, through Asian continents, and came back here on airplanes with people carrying this disease that was wiping people out, and very quickly. Wow. And that is exactly what we're looking at today. You know, we are looking at the ability to do that very quickly. And, of course, in the movie, I don't want to give away the punchlines and the end game in it, but in the movie, you know, you had the upper echelon scientists freaking out because they couldn't contain it.
You know, you're making me think about also the only other movie that was ever made on chemtrails, which I don't even think it was released in the United States. I believe it was either Canadian or Australian, called Toxic Skies with Anne Heche. Mm-hmm. And in that, that particular film, the scenario was that, and it was strictly all about chemtrails, and they showed the plane spraying, and it turned out that they had, if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've seen the movie, but basically they released a disease in order to sell the vaccine for it. And that was the scenario of that particular movie. And I was like, this is exactly how these big corporations work. We talk about Occupy wants, corporations to stop basically running the world. Mm-hmm. And so for those of us that are starting to awaken to this, how can we not put it past these corporations to do something like, chemtrail spraying or poisoning? Many of the arguments that I get, especially when you're dealing with people in, I don't want to say people of academia, but people basically intelligent, academic, linear, logical thinking people. They're like, oh, but the EPA would never allow them to do that, or NOAA would never allow them to do that. Well, these are all the organizations that have been breaking the laws for decades now. Of course they're going to do that. Look what happened with BP. They let BP get away literally with murder. And murder of hundreds of people, I'm sure, that have gotten sick from all the Nailco, Corexit spraying. So if we're going to use the excuse of, the government would never allow that, or the EPA would never allow that, you're sadly mistaken. Yes, they would. When it comes to profit, that's all they have an eye on. So that's something to be said. So, all my friends out there with your master's degrees and doctorates and whatnot, if you think that the government really cares and there is an actual chain of command when it comes to this, the only chain of command is profit. Unfortunately, and that's where we are in this day. And thank goodness for actions like Occupy.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely, and I think you're bringing up the actual chain of events and how it happens and why it happens. And unfortunately, I don't recall the gentleman's name, but that's okay. There was a geoengineering conference, and one of the scientists was asked, "How do you live with yourself creating, these chemicals?" And his answer was, and this is pretty prominent in science, and I'm not trying to belittle science whatsoever. So, but this particular gentleman's answer to the question, "How do you live with yourself?" was that, what they test and what they're creating as far as chemicals outweighs. In other words, if 3,000 people die, and they save 10,000 people's lives. You see what I'm saying? What in the end, what it outweighs how many people will die. So this is how they live with this, and you know what? That's an old paradigm of thinking, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
And I have a pet peeve as well. It's the same argument when it comes to animal testing, and yes, there's been many labs, and they continue, to dissect, animals and test poisons. And I remember when there was a huge, I believe it was in the 80s, and Avon's big thing was at the time, and I'm quoting something from reports that I saw. So no dishing on Avon. They've apparently come clean for many, many years on how they do their work now. But anyway, what it was is simplicity here. It was spraying things in rabbits' eyes, and the rabbits would go blind. They were testing, and then they sell it to us. You know what I mean? And so there were big. This was in California. Big protests for Avon to stop testing on animals, and Avon did, because they were the damage that this was doing to the company Avon, and they did. They stopped testing like this. Sure. Because if you're testing a substance that could cause blindness in humans, why are we having the substance in the shampoo anyway? Like, do we need that?
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like, hello, and as this all unravels, that becomes, and then others will say, but they're testing on, kidney transplants or this or that to save a human life. And, I don't know about you, but I don't know where we get off or they get off. I guess I can point a finger and say they, because I've never tested on an animal. So where do they get off on all this experimentation on animals, and millions of animals die a horrible death because of this. Yeah. Where are we going to draw the line as people and come together as one life, one planet?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And speaking of that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, this is what I believe, and I feel it absolutely deeply in my heart, and always have been a life lover, just source life lover, plants, animals, you name it, fish. And for me personally, I'm very disappointed in humans right now.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and that's why we're all out there. Let me ask you, Roxy, when you're talking about, as we're speaking of a global paradigm, and I know we mentioned that chemtrails are being sprayed, but what are some of the prominent countries that you've seen, and are there any countries that they just haven't been any reports of? Have you been aware of any of the global aspect of where they're spraying and who's getting sprayed the heavest?
Well, I don't think I can answer that question. I'm sure there are those who can. I'm centralized really between the reports that I get the most are the UK, India, the United States, Canada. Those are where the bulk of the reports are coming in.
Right.
And
Australia too, I seem to hear a lot as well.
Well, Australia was a weird one. Like a year and a half ago, we had people saying, writing in saying, and posting, that they don't get chemtrails in Australia, but now, now that
big place.
And so, as far as what countries are getting sprayed the heaviest, or states, or cities, or I don't have a global map on that.
Right.
But I'll say this: this is upper atmosphere spraying, so it whether it be visible in a country or not. Let's just say, Mexico's another one. Let's just say Brazil never sees a chemtrail. Let's just say for fun here. It doesn't matter, because in the upper atmosphere, how does that all work? That's all one.
Yeah.
It's a global atmosphere and different levels of the ionosphere. That's all one. So regardless if one country's seeing it or not, it's kind of like saying, well, we're only doing Corexic in the Gulf, Corexic spraying in the Gulf.
Right.
So only the Gulf is contaminated by Corexic.
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding. Huh?
Yeah.
When that's a big body of, that's a big ocean. And what do we have? Currents. Well, just like in the air, just like in the sea, we have currents. There's jet streams, etc. There's currents.
Yeah.
So in all of it, and as far as the ecosystem works, that's global eco. Yes, some areas of heavy contamination may show up first with fish kills, or certain animal types, or certain species, or frogs dying in that particular area. But it doesn't mean that wherever that body of water stretches out to isn't contaminated as well. You might have a concentrated area of contamination. We used to think back in the day, and I think you guys might remember this too, that, the ocean, go ahead and dump stuff in it because it's got such, it's got heavy iodine, it cures itself, and,
right.
We could just dump like all these ships, let them sink, and dump, have a few oil spills, it'll eat it up. But at some point, what starts to happen is even something as big as an ocean. I can't even imagine how many gallons of water in an ocean. It's unfathomable. But even an ocean is going to get to a place where it hits a critical mass, where it can't take care of itself, where you break down. And again, I'm not a chemist, but anyway, the U.S. government recently issued a statement. And do you know what they referred to geoengineering as?
No.
Reverse global warming?
Worse. Very telling. They call it the chemtrail hoax.
Just like all of conspiracy theorists say.
Yeah, and I'm going to get some more information on something else that happened about a week ago, but this is interesting. I don't know if any of you have heard about this, but President Obama did mention that they're hiring for Facebook and Twitter predominantly, but other social media sites. They want to watch what we're talking about in relationship to revolution. And so they're hiring people to watch our conversations, and the exact quote so that we don't see what happened in Egypt here.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because I did find the article, and the scary part is that article was posted in a local paper here because it is based in Virginia. So they have, I forgot how many people, but it's a couple thousand people working for the CIA that will be monitoring all of our tweets and Facebook status updates.
But surely they do that anyway. Do you know what I mean? They don't have to tell us about it.
Right,
right. And also it just means they're running scared, which is a good thing, I suppose.
I suppose so, absolutely. Roxy, as far as, I can't help, and this is really telling of what how it could affect us either electromagnetically. I don't know if there has been any proof of it affecting us that way, but I can't help but notice being very irritable the day of a very heavy spraying. And I'm wondering if you've heard similar reports as far as that is concerned.
Well, I can answer that. For starters, Mark Ryan, the director of the Poison Control Center, in answer to the effects of barium alone, his answer was short-term exposure can lead to stomach and chest pains. Long-term exposure causes blood pressure problems. And barium could be used to wear down a person's immune system. Okay, that's just barium. That's your director of Poison Control Center.
Okay.
All right. So small amounts cause short-term exposure. The short-term exposure can lead to stomach and chest pains. Long-term exposure can cause blood pressure problems, and over time wear down the immune system. That's just one component of what we're seeing in the soils in the rain. Many side effects: headaches associated with nausea. Again, wearing down the immune system. And this is an interesting one, and it's coming up over and over again. Insomnia, which causes sleep deprivation, which we all know what sleep deprivation is. And then functioning in sleep deprivation causes stress.
Yeah.
Right?
And
because you're a total crankiness, because you're trying to function at a level that you with 8 hours of sleep. Now you've had insomnia for 3, 4 days, 5 days going, and so you're running slower. It's like a car that's running out of gasoline, and that causes stress, and stress causes irritability. So with all of that in mind, and a general wearing down of the immune system, yes, we have had those reports. And whether it be the metals, I let others speak to that. Whether it be the metal, it's complicated. Could it be this? Could it be that? I couldn't answer you. All I can say is that sleep deprivation alone will cause that.
Right.
And then, of course, heavy metals or heavy metal toxicity is going to cause side effects as well, whether it be stress. You're stressing your immune system. So, yeah, I would imagine you could stress out, when you have a day of heavy spraying. Because, this is what people don't realize. It's not only in the water and in our soil that's growing food. These are nanoparticulates. You cannot see them with your eyes. All right? So these are invisible to you and I, and these are going into our lungs. And what do our lungs do? What do our lungs function as? Oxygen to the body, oxygen to the blood, and oxygen, it's when you have heavy metals that you're breathing in and you're slowing down the ability to have high oxygen stats, aren't you slowing the brain down? I mean, I'm not a doctor, but isn't that slowing the brain down as well?
Exactly. We're almost at the top of the hour, but we
Are
have
we really?
yeah. Can you believe it already? It's always that way, and we're always like 2 hours. Wow, now 2 hours goes by quicker. It was actually your idea for us to extend it 2 hours, but I mean back in the day when we finally did extend all of our show to 2 hours. But since we're coming up on the hour, we do have a caller on hold. And if I'm not mistaken, this might be a caller who's called in before from Camp Verde in Arizona. So
oh, great.
Let's bring him on the line. Hello, caller. You're on the air with the JustBernard Show and Roxy Lopez. Hello, Camp Verde.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello.
Yes, did you have a question for
yes,
guest Roxy Lopez?
Yeah, I'm just going to give you some food for thought. The reason they are able to experiment on you is because of the not the Social Security, but your birth certificate.
Oh,
That's
didn't
where,
we see something recently on that with Ben Stewart posted something similar to that in one of his movies, I believe.
Exactly.
And could you explain why that is?
Pardon me?
Could you explain why that is so our listeners can understand a little better?
Yeah, that's so adamant in everything we do because what the birth certificate gives them is the ownership of your body.
Yes.
And that's why they're so adamant when a kid is born for that reason. That way they own your body for that amount of time. Actually, it's worth for 70 years. Give you a little bit head up on that.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for sharing that food for thought with us today. Roxy, is there anything relating to what our caller just spoke about that maybe you have found something
yes.
as far as patents that allow them to test on birth certificates? If I remember correctly, I think it is Esoteric Agenda, Ben Stewart's Esoteric Agenda, that talks about this, about the birth of the ship, the ship's birth, and then the birth certificate. Mm-hmm. And actually, the last movie we learned that Canada isn't really Canada, but it was Esoteric Agenda. So what have you found as far as that?
Well, I mean that's something that I studied in the late 80s and early 90s. I found it really fascinating, and again, thanks for the call and reminding us. It has everything to do with the UCC codes and all of this stuff. If people want to look this up and go back to, the birthing in the old days, ships came in and they wrote up a docket when they came in through waterways. And now I can't think of the name of it at this point, but if somebody wants to throw it in the chat, basically certifying what was on board on the ship, and that became a bill of lading or a bill, something like that. But I think it is bill of lading. Basically, they used the same that same, which is really, when I first read about this, it just blew my mind because the same birth canal. See, when a ship comes in, what is it called? It comes into the berth.
Yep.
And then it has the bill of lading. So we birth through water to, right? It's from humans. And then this is almost like a bill of lading. But it gets interesting. And if those of you really want to look at the darker side of this or the realistic side of it, look at straw man theory. Look into straw man theory because that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
We are owned. We are an entity of the government. As everybody knows, the capital is located in the District of Columbia, and most United States citizens don't realize that's in the state of Washington, but it's 80 square miles.
No, it's in the state of Maryland.
Oh, sorry. Yes. No, sorry. It is the District of Columbia. Thank you, Bernard. Is where we house everything. And if you look into that as well, the District of Columbia, et cetera, very fascinating information there as well. In other words, where I'm going with this is the United States Corporation exists. There's the United States of America, and then there's the United States Corporation. And you and I and all of us, well, not Yvonne. and not Trevor, but Bernard and I, we are owned by the United States Corporation.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's what the caller is referring to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, there is there's like, isn't it like the District of Columbia technically not part of the United States? Because there is 3 other places in the world like that.
Yeah.
There's the Vatican, and I believe there's one in London.
London is also the same.
Yeah.
They are sovereign nations, or city states. They're considered to an extent.
Yeah, it's like
they are sovereign to anybody else. And
like
it is London. It's a city of London, or London proper, I guess, for lack of a better term, and the Vatican and Washington D.C. And isn't it funny how all of those are either the financial, the war, or the religion controllers of the world? Funny how that works out.
All of the above, and now it's the biochemists, obviously, the geoengineers.
Yeah.
But with all that in mind, regardless, this is why, and popping back into Occupy again, this is why we need to learn our rights. We need to learn what the country was built on and our rights. And then we need to get our rights back, because somewhere along the line, history's been rewritten and they forgot to send us the memo.
Yeah, apparently so. Absolutely. Well, you know what? We're already at we got about 5 minutes left here for this particular hour. So before we move into further discussions, because I got about 20 more questions for Roxy, of course, and I'm sure Yvonne and Trevor have their 2 cents to put in as well as what Roxy has prepared to share with us. She's got some interesting information and data that she wants to share with us today. Let's go ahead and take our short musical break today, and we just posted the video on GIC, and I just thought it was so appropriate, because now that everybody is waking up, the world is changing, and the tide is turning. So we're going to play Roger Waters' The Tide is Turning. Everybody knows how my day is going. Let's bring Yvonne Wykes on from across the pond. Hello, Yvonne. How are you now that we are finally on the air?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. Much better than last week, thank you. How are you?
You sound good. You sound really good.
Good.
Back to her beautiful, lovely voice.
Aw. Well, I got my energy back. It really wiped me out, so I've just about got it back now, so that's good.
Good. You're all rested up. And now I think our assistant director in Winnipeg is under the weather this week.
I've passed it on.
Hi, Trev. How are you?
Hey, I'm not too bad.
Not too bad?
Yeah. Yeah, again. But, that's life.
Yeah, that's just par for the course, I guess. And you're getting snow up there now, aren't you?
Yes. Woke up this morning to snow.
Wow. Well, we had threats of it last week, but we didn't get any here, thank goodness. Anyway, so without further ado, we already heard her voice in the background. Let me tell you all a little bit about Roxy Lopez. I'm sure you already know. She's been a guest on our show many times. I consider her definitely the go-to gal when it comes to chemtrails. She is the owner of thetruthDenied.com, and also is the host of our weekly radio show here on GIC Radio called Truth Denied with Roxy Lopez. And here to fill us in on what she's been doing these last several months, because I think it's been about 4 or 5 months since we've had her on the show, here is Roxy Lopez. Hello, Roxy.
Hello. Good morning. What fun this is.
Yes. It's always fun with you, Rox, I'll tell you.
I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm in the dark over here. What's going on now? Are we even going to get to do a show? It just happens, and this is typical, and we all know how to deal with it, and hopefully our listeners hung in there. They usually do. It's fantastic.
We're good. We're all good, and we're ready to hear what you have been doing. And what I'd like to do, Roxy, if you could, is we have a lot of people are just now, because of Occupy, I'm noticing, and especially here. Yes, hold on, everybody, please. We're trying to get Roxy Lopez back.
I'm here.
Oh, hello.
Hello again.
Hello.
Well, that was very nice and kind of Appalachian Power to decide to do a brownout right before we started the show. I'm trying to get my computer back together, so just give me a second here. The computer, when it restarted, decided that it had to run a full security scan, and I had no control over it, so we had to wait 10 minutes for this.
My PC used to do that all the time as well.
Me and Roxy have this lovely technical issues whenever we go live.
Interference.
I'm telling you. Okay, I just want to make sure we're supposed to be. A couple more clicks. Our apologies to our listeners if we are even on the air right now. Yes, we are on the air. Okay, very good. Anyway, so that was a very interesting opening to the show. I'm sure the intro played and there was complete silence for 5 minutes. But anyway, so now
it's very easy for us to help those newcomers along. That's what our group does. It supports the newcomer. No question is a stupid question. The only stupid question is the one you don't ask.
Yeah.
So, the idea, I do look at a lot of other individuals' work, people that have worked on chemtrails a lot longer than I have, and I learn something new every day. And that is the interesting thing about chemtrails. Now, if you see in the sky, you might not see the plane itself, but you will notice, no matter where you are, really, these streaks. They're big white streaks. Now, what do these streaks do? Well, they linger. Sometimes they linger for the entire day. If you watch them, anybody who's new, you watch those streaks, they'll spread out, maybe even into some sort of cloud formation.
For me and my local Occupy Roanoke, many people are just now awakening to the fact that chemtrails even exist. And I'm getting a lot of questions from my fellow occupiers. What is it? What's going on? So can you be so kind and go back into beginner mode for us a little bit, and maybe give your generic, for lack of a better term, description of what is a chemtrail and what are they seeing?
Very interesting that you mentioned that, by the way, because we also on Facebook, we have the group Chemtrails Kill, and we're also recruiting, if you will, a lot of new members who are just now realizing that these supposed contrails, and I will be more than happy to explain it, are really more than just a contrail or jet exhaust, if you will. And so I welcome anyone who's even at the very beginning of this discovery, because of the work that many of the camps have done